hope everyone can see my screen. Today we are talking about SIL and the importance of selecting the right SIL provider with our very special guest presenter today, Mehul Shah from Carefast Group. So hi, Mehul.
Hi, Devi. How are you?
Thanks for joining us today. All right, so just very quickly before we do start, we are recording this presentation, so you'll all get a copy of the actual recording as well as the slides in the next day or two from today. We will let Mehul do his presentation, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the bottom of your screen in the Q&A box. And we will be holding a sort of a question and answer session at the end of Mehul's presentation. So, but feel free to pop any questions in there during the presentation itself. There might be something relevant that is worth touching on at that point. Otherwise, we will get around to answering those questions at the end of the presentation. So for those of you who might not be familiar with who we are, NDIS Property Australia, we are advisors. Oops, sorry. My screen is taking a while to move on. We're advisors and consultants in the SDA world. We are based in Brisbane, but we work Australia-wide. We are doing a lot of work in Melbourne at the moment with Mehul, actually, who has actually joined our team as a provider consultant, which is very exciting. We have a few different services that we're offering now, a fee-for-service where we just provide consultation work to people wanting to do SDA developments and want to find out where they should do the developments or whether the location they have is suitable. Also what to build, what they should not be building. So if you've got any inclination in getting more information about that, if you are looking to do a project, then please do reach out to us. We also do short-term accommodation and respite. We have a recently offered also participant procurement service for people who might have an SDA home that they are struggling to actually engage a provider or find tenants for. And of course, if you want to know anything about the SDA world, do jump onto our SDA housing podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, with a lot of episodes there with different topics, different subjects, all within the SDA and NDIS world. So that is pretty much who we are. But now I want to actually introduce Mehul, who is the director of Carefast, based in Melbourne. And Mehul, you are very much involved in the SDA world as well, in terms of running SDA properties, developing SDA properties, but running many, looking after many clients, I should say, both in and out of SDA properties. So you're well versed on how the two, the SIL and the SDA worlds come together. So obviously you're going to be running us through your world today and how all that works. So I'm going to hand over to you, and yeah, looking forward to hearing what you got to say.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie, and everyone. I think that we always work very closely with the NDIS Property Australia, and many of the investors have been assisting. But this is a perfect time where we are in Melbourne, right between the like a cup week and cup days tomorrow. So today almost people are not working, but many investors, when I definitely think about my investment when we have some downtime from day-to-day job. I think today we are going to focus, as the title suggests, about the SIL and the importance of SIL with SDA. And we will get you through I think there are a little bit information to absorb, and that's why we always share those information. I don't like to follow the PowerPoint slide by slide, but I will try my best. But I will be focusing more on the realistic stuff today, rather than academic or rather than too much, jargons, industry jargon, I call. So we have really made this tailored for the investors, which is important. So to start with, obviously, we have Carefast Group, which was formed 4 years ago, and before that, obviously, we had our property portfolio, which I will walk you through the journey that how naturally I fall into this space, which was obviously not planned, but now that's pretty much my and Carefast family's livelihood. So to start with, obviously, we have we are a registered provider. We started our journey just from the property development, and I'm acting as an investor like you guys. And then I had 20 years of experience of doing property development, mainly into knockdown, rebuild, my own projects. So I was never working for any clients or anything, but that was just doing 2 or 3 projects in a reasonably good suburbs of Melbourne for last 20 years. And then I myself decided 4 or 5 years ago that let's diversify into NDIS investment. And at the same time, my past working background for 15 years, I work in a life insurance industry where I learned about the compliance and processes and recruitment and compassion, the risk. I'm also a non-practicing financial advisor. So all in all, pretty much if I look back of my 25 years of experience, I just fall into an industry which I had to use all the skills I have acquired over the years, and then obviously learning the framework of NDIS and learning how the insurance scheme works, and especially government funded insurance scheme works, and then keeping the focus on two key people I believe in the value supply chain. One is the investors who are actually putting their livelihood, their all financial goals, their dreams, hard work. And the other part is that who are the enabling for, that is our disabled community. So people with disability really appreciate that what's being offered to them through a private sector, through semi-government sector, funded by a wonderful scheme, which is we known as NDIS. So that's the overview of how I fall into it. I'm doing as Debbie mentioned that I'm doing my own projects. I'm also doing consultancy for investors at any stage of their journey. That is something which we like. And we have, first, I always like to get my hands dirty, first 100% understand what I'm doing before I open my mouth and I talk with someone. I also don't do that for living, or that is not my like a full-fledged consulting business. I wish I have that time, but maybe 10 years down the track to do that. Right now, this is the fantastic platform where I can talk to many people and can have a common voice. Earlier, it was very hard that I need to talk with many people in individual through reference, through friends, family, without doing any marketing. So now this is my passion that I just get this platform and I just share as much as I know. One thing I can guarantee that anything in this presentation or what I'm talking, it is from the first-hand experience from CareFirst Group. Either it's a building, either it's SDA, either it's a SIL, and again I'm still learning. So I also go and attend industry seminars, national conferences, because you have to absorb the knowledge and then you need to validate and then you transform that knowledge. So yeah, that is the key area of expertise which is on the slide. That is, we do the disability care, we do the SILs. SIL is the supported independent living and the respite services. We have accessible accommodation and housing solutions. So again, I put my 70% of my own property portfolio I converted into a non-SDA respite. That's how I started before even putting the new houses and putting all the eggs into one basket for myself, to understand that how the entire transition work from the participant point of view, how these houses are going to be filled, and what that journey looks like when people are going to finally move into those houses. So that's where I think it really helped us by having a non-SDA accommodation. I changed so many bathrooms, renovated bathrooms, and put the ramps into my properties where it was possible. And luckily, I had many properties in the inner north and inner southeast of Melbourne in the hospital catchment area. When I bought 10, 15 years ago, I never thought about it. But yeah, that is where I learned that my first couple of years was just learning through that journey before building my own SDA. And obviously the property development, SDA built, and tenancy matching. Tenancy matching is a fancy name, but it's basically what we are saying is that finding the participant, suitability of the participant, suitability of their disability, and then getting them for a safe and secure environment under SDA properties, which we will cover later in the presentation. And obviously the community engagement and disability advocacy, because this is the industry where I always tell investors that money can be a byproduct, but your heart should be into the community space. That this is a little bit different than our normal investment where you are miles away from what's happening. I think we all should be proud that we are not only making a good rental income, but we are making a big difference in the community. So that disability advocacy and the community engagement is the key thing I do, no matter how busy I am. The moment I lose that touch, all this becomes the bricks and concrete and cements. So I think that's very important reminder for myself that that's the most important part of the puzzle. So from the next slide, what we want to discuss is about the two most important parts of NDIS investments. So one is the SDA build and SDA management, which most of the people start working from that, and sometimes only focus is in there, while NDIS participants and SIL management. So I always say that the first one is more about the asset creation, and the second one is the cash flow management, literally from the investment point of view, because your SIL management and the NDIS participants, they are going to bring that cash flow why you have invested into this SDA program. So I think from what I have been talking with many investors, and I have met them at many part of the many various stages of their journey, and 80% of the time I see that the mistakes have been done where too much focus was on the SDA build and the SDA management. And usually also that is very natural because the introduction may have happened either from someone with the real estate background or someone who has accounting background or self-managed super fund background. I see myself as well one of you at the time many years ago. So I think that's where the one mistake I always say that understand the full cycle upfront rather than just being stuck halfway. And yes, it is our focus is on the cost, on the loan, on the ratio, how much I can afford it. And the focus is not really what will happen after the house has been built or how much one feature in the house will make a big difference compared to other competitor in the area and things like that. So I think that is what also we are going to discuss today. And investors often miss out the importance of understanding how actually SIL works. And obviously, as an investor, you don't need to know the operational side of it, but you definitely need to know the framework, which we are going to touch base a little bit. So at least you know the right questions to ask, you have that confidence, and you know that what you are paying for what future benefit. So you need the short term investment, long term investment, and that's where you decide that including that little fire sprinkler, what value that will add in long term. Or for example, when someone is saying that you should not make a 25 square house in a home and land package with the 3 HPS, high physical support people. In real life, we see that because imagine in the small footprint, if you can't move the wheelchair, uh, all those numbers looks pretty on the Excel spreadsheet. So these are the type of things I talk, because my right hand sees in my service and operations area, and my left hand sees on my sites and talking with you like that, with the investors and builders and NDIS assessors, you name it, the whole industry which we talk with. So the full picture is very important. So and that's what we are going to discuss, that how we navigate both SDA and SIL efficiently. And today's focus is on SIL, but it is always important to know what SDA is and then what SIL is, that we will learn straight after that. So from the role of the SDA provider, at very quickly, to give you the understanding that SDA provider, they are like a project manager. They are very important role, but it is also important that what is the knowledge of SDA provider as well. Because if you rely upon only SDA provider, then you are relying upon them to also set up your team, and that team who is been set up, is very important that you have your say, and you are not basically handcuffed without knowing or knowingly, because some investors I meet and say, oh, I went with this person because it was so easy, and it was, I don't need to do anything. And I often smile and say, there is nothing called easy to get the best return from investment. We all work hard to make that money, and we need to work twice harder to protect that money and to get the best outcome. That's I strongly believe. So I think that education is important. There is nothing that, yes, trust is a great thing and many great people in the industry, but your scenario or your situation is totally, you know better than anyone else. So I think SDA provider also prepares those contractual agreements between the investor, an SDA provider with the SIL provider, SDA provider and NDIS participant. But obviously, I have not put the SIL agreement. Even SIL providers put lots of agreements. The SIL provider with the participants and the entire management of those legal, both tenancy and the service contracts. Relationship management with about three parties. Obviously, they collect the rent. It is like a normal investment property, but this is a bit different because you are collecting the rent from the NDIA, from the insurance agency, and then they make the whole accounts and maintenance and management and reporting of those transactions, and then it comes to you. So that part is often talk and discuss a lot, and that's why I pretty much have another presentation which focus only on those, the building types, the dwelling types, which area should have what type of dwellings, which disability, which is not the scope of today. Today is more about after the property is built or during, what are the steps investors should know about the sale, and how you are well equipped to get that return which you have been promised or you have been thinking about. So from the SIL participants, placements and services point of view, I think that now we are basically going into the SIL territory. Until now, I had given the overview, the background, where the focus lies and what is the importance. And now we are going into the SIL participants, placements and services. So often people or investors directly can talk with the SIL providers. They can also talk with the SDA providers. Sometimes they are both, SIL and SDA. That's another thing I will also update, that there is lots of talk right now, lots of changes are happening with NDIS. When people say, oh, so you are SIL provider and you are SDA provider, what about the conflict of interest? Why you want to provide both services? And again, I just smile because it's information, but without any practical approach to that. So what the new legislation or the new discussions are in place, where NDIS is recommending that one person should not provide both the services where possible, and because it creates the conflict of interest, it is focusing more on the participants or the disability community, because they often feel that I don't have a control if my housing provider and my service provider are the same people, which is quite true. At the same time, you can declare the conflict of interest, and you can ask if that sometimes people like to have it because they trust that person, and they say, no, I'm happy to do with this. But my point is that if you are not providing two services to one person, you are still okay to have both the registration or both the service offerings. And quite often we have even separated that because in completely two different brands. But in general, to have that knowledge under one roof is very important. So if I'm appointed as a SIL provider, and if someone else is the SDA provider, the relationship would be much stronger because we would be really helping each other on the gaps of knowledge, or the demographic, or anything which we have in our experience. We often do for my own investment properties and for my investors. If so many people come to me as a consultant to make sure that we appoint the right SIL provider, because to manage a SIL house is not easy. And yes, you have either a big huge companies, for them it is obviously a number, like apartments, buildings, semi government, state government projects. Then there is a boutique, I call, businesses like ourselves. And then I call hands on approach. So someone who knows from the building, the SDA built, the requirements, and then how the service works, the changes with NDIS, and then how the future looks like. If you have all that knowledge, you don't need to use every day, but it is so important to have that confidence to talk with investors like yourself and giving you the right advice. Maybe 70% time I tell people what they don't want to hear, but it is my job, because as I said, that I'm not a salesperson, or I'm not trying to sell anything. What I'm talking is a pure passion and experience, that if any one or two things from today's session you take, and if that enhance your investment outcome, that is, I think, the best value which we all get today. So I think to go back to the importance of the complexity of this, because you can see that you have the you have to consider too many things as a SIL provider. So first thing comes with the gender, age, cultural alignment, common interest and values, pets, and some people wants to live with pets, some people are allergic with pets, participants choice and control, the restrictive practices with mental health, the ratios are not often right, obviously the safety and safeguarding and security for the participants and the staff who are servicing them, so alignment of the disabilities from risk and safety, as I mentioned. So I think this is just the highlights, which gives an investor a bit of idea. When often someone says my house is ready, and I heard that there is a lots of demand, why the house is empty? So that is something is important, that you understand the complexity and why we recommend to have plenty of time and not rushing into things, not dealing with the middleman. Because you can see, if you are dealing with the middleman, all these complexities are like every time there is information gap, and then the final results are in dissatisfaction, because you are dealing with the middleman and there is no control of the person who is actually talking, has really the nice communication channel set up between the SDA provider, SIL provider, investors, participants, support coordinators, NDIS, assessors. So all those things are important, that we'll check in the next slide. So the timing, as I mentioned, that from the SDA and SIL collaboration is very, very important. So often SDA providers achieve outcomes through effective collaboration with SIL providers, which we always recommend. I think that if you even appoint the SDA provider formally later on, it's okay, but I strongly suggest that you should have a SIL provider, either through SDA provider, or through your research, or through a consulting companies, but you definitely need to have a SIL provider, because the house is going to build, you have your builder, you have your architect, you have your SDA assessor. It's a quite systematic process. I call that part is a science. Yes, and that science costs you lots of money and all of us as investors, but the art is the actually finding the participant and the SIL. Those numbers which people often share, they are not relevant when your house is built. They are running 3 to 6 months in the past. The other important thing, that the numbers are published by NDIA, they are only after the houses are registered, not houses are being built. So understand all those numbers which you often see. So I call the analysis by paralysis. So I think we need to make sure that we understand the story behind the numbers. But coming back to the second point that we always encourage, for that reason that you understand the process, how it works, and how crucial to understand the capabilities of each of the players in your team, starting from SDA to SIL provider to everyone. As an investor, you need to have a little bit of more engagement or involvement with those processes. So people often ask me that, what is the ideal timeline to engage you or to anyone, and how it works. That is not like a, sometimes it's just the timing, but I always say that different scenarios, different geographic locations, different type of build, the area, everything plays the role. But the general timeline period should be minimum 6 to 9 months when you engage a SIL provider and or SDA provider. Often you people go with the SDA assessor because it's the first step. But SDA assessor has got very that way limited role to play with the builder and architect to just ticking the box. They are like a assessor with the access consulting experience where they are going to tick the box. So your project would be registered for the category which you have selected. And that's pretty much their role. SDA provider role at that stage is not even started. The SDA provider role technically starts when they start forming up the legal contracts with the SIL provider, collaboration agreements, and all those things. That is where SDA providers should be talking first about the SIL provider. Quite often, big companies I have seen that they have a like a, I call pre-marriage, where they have already made that partnership that this project we will do together. So that is the another risk factor. I disagree strongly that if I'm a good SIL provider and someone in Geelong, as an example, tells me that can you be just be my SIL partner with the SDA provider is asking me, if I say yes without knowing whether I have a capabilities there, do I have a network there, do I have operations there, do I have staffing there, I'm going to fail the investor and SDA provider. But SDA provider is just wanting the easy way out because SDA provider is saying that I heard about you and you are a good brand. That means nothing. So that's another thing that you need to also check, that who you are going with, the SIL provider you are going, what is their presence in the area, what expertise they can bring in that area where you are building. I think the greenfield home and land packages in estates, I always say 12 months. That is the area which is right now oversupplied in many metro cities, which I see. It's not the generic statement, but obviously it makes sense because you don't know what's your next door neighbor is going to build. So you have to do a little bit of more work. Your design types should not be monotonous because often you don't have basically any weapon to put in front of the competition or to do something for the participant. So for those, I often ask for 12 months time where we can suggest you the little things, then the tweaks and the bits and pieces which you can to put into your investment. The villa house, townhouse is again 6 to 9 months. Villas are right now very popular choice, but at the same time we need to understand that how the ratio of support and how the funding would be available, because the lower the sharing ratio in SIL, the higher the funding it costs for the government. And that is where higher the disability, or the type of disability should be at a high intensity. So all those things works behind the scene. So it looks great again, but what are the probabilities and percentages out of the total disability which we are going to get? And then obviously you split that between the mental disability and the physical disability, and then you further drill that down with the type of dwelling which you are selecting and what you are building. That's again separate topic, but while it's relevant, I thought it's worth mentioning here. Apartments are 10 to 18 months, I call, because one, it takes time to like build longer. It also harder for SIL provider. It seems that apartments are always usually in the good area, and young people like it. All of those things are right, but it is, I have seen many apartments empty in Melbourne, inner north, inner southeast, and that is combination of two things: SIL provider being too big and too lazy, and they think that they are the order takers. So you cannot have, as an investor, someone who just sits there, secures you or your business, and sit on by putting on website and say someone will come and knock the door. They are way out of the norm with the industry. What's happening? We do other way around. We hardly put anything on the website. We put some of our projects, but my own projects as an investor, but it's nothing. Sometimes by putting so many properties there, investors think that they are a big company, but how I see that for how long they are just there, and why it's not moving, and why this person is taking one property here as a SIL provider and then another end of the city, or whatever, 200 kilometers apart. So all those things are important. So apartments, coming back to apartments, the complexity of apartments on the service ratio, the OOA, the concierge concept which is coming, people wants to also bring their pets. They also want to have a social community area in the apartment. People who are moving from a traditional home setups. So there are lots of pros and cons on that. And obviously the regional investments, the minimum I suggest 12 months, because it's a complete different requirements there, and you need to really, as a SIL provider, I always like to mingle with the community and really understand the requirements, what is the way people are wanting to live, and what are the right ratios for them, and all the social aspects around that. So from the key responsibility of the SIL providing, I'm just checking time wise. I think we are doing well. From the this is again literally examples which we do day in day out, and it may be too much operational information. I don't expect investors should learn this, but absolutely investors should know this. So the responsibilities, also people often think that SDA provider charge me whatever the 10-15%, and that should take care of my marketing, this, that, everything. To be honest, I always believe that the way the fee structure, first of all, NDIS has not set up any fee structure for SDA provider. It has been given lots of responsibilities, and there is no line item for SDA provider. When we call line item, how to invoice to NDIS, SIL provider has a line item, and they can charge once the service starts. But SDA provider often get caught out. I've heard in Queensland there is a significant amount of charges have been paid by investors before the actual SDA rental income starts. But whoever ends up doing it, but we need to do a proper marketing, not copy and paste of the plans from another site to another site. That's not marketing. To make a specialized marketing effort for your property, going into the community, putting open days, setting up barbecues, going and engaging with the allied health professionals, occupational therapists, the hospitals, the local crisis accommodations. All those things I call the community management and marketing. And that's often not been done, because either there is not enough money, or the focus is too much on already investors have spent so much money either on the build, or giving commissions to people. But when the actual work needs to enable to find the participants and to really activate the SIL providers, money is often not left. And investors have also not been set that expectations from SDA provider, that SIL provider would need some money if you really want them to work with us and do a quality job. So sourcing suitable participants, overseeing participant onboarding and care plan management, ensuring NDIS compliance, registration conditions, and the adherence to that, Maintaining the right participant ratios is very important. Recently, some changes which has been taken place, which would weed out all the bad practices, the overusage of plan. Right now, until like few months ago, people used to just use extra money from participants plan because they often say we don't have another participant. Those days are gone, so we need to be having a very smart and ethical SIL provider who really looks after all those factors. Because what will happen, you may get the participant, but if the SIL provider, they have utilized the funding, let's say $100 is given for 12 months, they have used in 6 months. Now in the new condition, those 6 months after that, that top up won't be happening. That comes to the retention part of it, because you may have a participant but it won't last, because participant won't be happy with the SIL provider that my money and my funds have been misused. Now NDIS is also putting that authority or ownership or onus on the participant as well. So it's not just pointing the fingers, but you also take the engagement and part of it. As a SIL provider, that's why we need to put now all of those items into agreement, and participant needs to sign into a detailed service plan or the care plan which we are putting, not just by service items, but actually the dollar amount. Again, too much information on that, but again, so important for you as investors to understand that just getting a participant is not enough. You need to, you have built this house for 10 years, 12 years, 13 years ROI with the solid income. And if it takes little longer, but get the right participant rather than getting a participant. So managing the right participant ratio, that's the part which we discuss. Building and maintaining strong relationships with support coordinators, service providers, which is vital. As I said, that one of our job is to really work with our competitors, the competitors who are having ethical values, and they make sure that our reputation, our brand reputation is not being compromised if we introduce someone, but we manage that part as well. And we make sure that it is not just the introduction, we manage the entire process, and we shortlist the best operators at the best of our knowledge and our own research. Um, I think that the returning participant is, I already mentioned, but it really complements the SDA providers. Because imagine, SDA providers won't get their rental income if there is no participant. So the both SDA providers and investors are more and more reason to really understand the role of SIL. And I often educate to SDA providers, I often educate to support coordinators, because quite often that the focus is just on accommodation and not on services. So I think that we assist the we interview SIL providers if investors wants us to help. If we are into the area, we only operate in Melbourne. And we only provide the SIL services for the area which we cover. We cover vast 60 to 70% geographic of Melbourne metro area, and we are next year expanding into regional in Victoria. But yeah, we are but well connected with the entire ecosystem of Victoria when it comes to the SIL and SDA. So I think we discuss about the participant retention and occupancies. The retention and occupancy are two different things, but it is both affecting the bottom line for everyone. And I think that this is very simple but effective way of, like, the SIL provider need to build the trust through consistent high quality support with the family members, with the participant, with the allied health professionals. Ensure clear and regular communication, maintain stable occupancy by promptly filing vacancies, which is so important to stay one step ahead of the game. Like, if someone is having a high risk, someone is going back to a hospital for a planned surgery, so all those factors need to be considered. If there is a delay, what will happen with the occupancy? Because it's very hard to have three people on the same day. That way their plan can work smoothly. Also the community engagement and other partnerships which you develop. So it's not only just services, but how you are building the entire outside of the house environment for the participant. If they are not happy with the community, if they are finding too much change if they are not happy with the new service providers they are coming. It's too much change as a human they are going, and we need to really factor all those little things to get the big things right. So anything we do with the due diligence is the most important thing that as I mentioned earlier, that often people get with the numbers. I always say that, hope for the best and plan for the worst. From the investment journey, if someone is maybe thinking first time, someone is having a very decent portfolio and wanting to invest to diversify, someone is trying to do for retirement through the self-managed super fund, whatever that is, always be harsh and be conservative, which I always do the 70% rule. So whatever that number is, so if someone says you are building for 3 plus 1, I said just count 70%. So if you get two people, I think be happy and your numbers should stick. If you are getting rent for two people rather than $180,000, even 100,000 net should work for your investment. If that is some, so don't be have a high risk, high leverage type of thing, which is entirely your situation, but that is something 70% rule I often say. Also, I say that consider 70% time of out of 12 months you will have the occupancy. You always consider that someone may drop off. Even the people without disability, if you look that stats, the sharing is not easy, and with disability it's also more challenging. And then that's where the importance of SIL provider and the services comes. People wants to live there not just because they like their fellow housemate, they also need to like the entire environment and the support and the services and the cohesive culture. I think that as an investor, I always say that that you research, you basically have your own say and ask questions. It won't hurt to even pay someone when you are spending $1 million average. It won't hurt to pay a little bit more upfront to do that. So yes, that is money which you don't see the tangible value, but I think knowledge is really important in this space. Have an exit strategy upfront. So have your plan A, B, C, I call, and that way you are very relaxed. And then pretty much what the noise, rumors versus reality, you don't feel like someone is trying to overcomplicate or make it harder. But at least you know that you have all the plans and you have the strategies upfront. I think that low risk is always the way to start, depending upon your investment cycle you are. Like when I started investing in 2002, I didn't know any of this. And if I look back, I didn't know even the value of corner block in Victoria. And my first house I bought in Baronia was a corner block, which I realized after 8 years when I formed the proper development company. But I think that was like a lucky story, but I think that is where now lots of knowledge is available. I think avoid dealing with middlemen. I again mention, and I don't say in a rude way middlemen. I think that everyone has to like make their own earning and have their own space. People should share, but make sure that that person has a role to play, and they are not hiding anything, or they are not saying something which they are not knowledge or authorized or registered provider. Quite often people think that he is NDIS provider or they have this business and that business, but we need to really check that because the compliance is coming quite heavy, and which is good because it will protect the investors, it will protect the participants, and we need to find those ethical providers and service providers from many available from the choice point of view. So from the service at a glance, we look at, and this is something which we don't do as a marketing. So we just often just share that knowledge which we have throughout this journey which I had, as I mentioned, that combination of life insurance, recruitment, operations, compliance, dealing with obviously the government legislative changes, um, building houses, buying houses, understanding with sitting with architects, working with councils, working with financial institutions, knowing the importance of the due diligence, also from the risk for the participant point of view. It is not just building a house and get someone staying there and living, because as a SIL provider especially, we are responsible for any negligence, anything happens to their health, we are responsible to take care of it. Either 3 o'clock in the morning, if the phone rings, then if no one is there, I need to pick up that phone call. So it is not easy, but it is very fulfilling, that journey. And that's why I think that it is quite important that whatever knowledge we as a company and me as an individual grabbed to share, and that can only bring the industry stronger. It can only bring all the negative influence out of the industry, because investors and participants family, they often hear lots of negative press, and the people who are doing the right thing, they often busy doing their own thing because they don't care how they have been perceived, because they are happy and fulfilled. So I'm trying my best to give all this information and knowledge, and then you can take it from there. Whenever possible, we are more than happy to assist you. So yeah, the first one is that SDA investment consulting, which is nothing but just starting point, the blue sky thinking, that oh, sometimes someone says that, oh, I want to do that, good idea or bad idea, or sometimes say I have a land there, what should I do? But make sure that sometimes people come and say, actually I have halfway built this and thinking of converting into improved livability. So I hear all sorts of things, and then I, because of the lack of time, I can only pick someone who is wanting to start from the beginning, or not coming with the problem when they have knocked every door. Unfortunately, that's because that's not our primary business or role. We often give the best of our ability, the advice, but cannot hold the hand. But yeah, each scenario is different. The second one is SDA projects, feasibility and the project management, which is quite strong and proactive approach, where you have all the checks. This is the example where people invite me into architect office, or with the building, with the builder discussions, or even with the SDA assessor, and then we have chat together, and investors find fully empowered and say, yes, I have got the team here, and we don't mind. We are not in a business of recommending someone, or having a like a consulting fee internal, nothing like that. We pretty much work, we can validate if you have someone in place, or we can just tell you if we know someone that this could be a good option for you. The SDA lodgement with NDIA, that is something as a SDA provider we do, and at least investors should know that we are well equipped with that. So pretty much from starting and finding a site till putting the participant, we are equipped, but we are not doing that as a full commercial business. Otherwise, I cannot look after this many operations from the boutique company with 100 people, which we have. And they all are directly recruited and managed and engaged through our senior leadership team. So yes, we definitely have a two different division. We have a property division, and we have my own building division, and then we have a service division, which is purely NDIS front end operational service delivery. That's what we do, and that's why we are quite authentic in terms of what we say, and the industry changes, which again changes every day, but we try to keep on top of it. I think the SIL participants, number four, the SIL participants placements and services, that is the biggest challenges right now. And we just simplify that. We don't overpromise and underdeliver. We just give and prepare the investors with the real outcome. And sometimes I often feel sorry, because I'm trying to do my best with the investors, but because some of them had a past bad experience, I often being put on a hot seat and asked 1,000 questions. And I often say that you could have got the best out of my time through asking straight questions rather than asking about my reliability. So I think it's often that we do the research upfront, not with us or anyone, but it is so important that you can get the best outcome from your time. The fifth is the property matching services. This is the services which we offer to the actual industry. So, for example, NDIS, YPIRSC team, or hospitals, or the Summer Foundation, the Housing Hub. So, these are the people who rely upon us for property matching. And we feel, again, being a size of our company, we become specialized into that. So, that's instantly a solution focus. That if we have a property stock, our property matching services team, they can see that, oh, we have 10 properties empty from an investment purpose in a big home and land packages. Let's try to work on a hospital discharge or do a mid-term accommodation or do something like that. So that solution focus is important. And again, the focus is on here the investor and the person who is in the hospital. If money comes as a byproduct to us as a service, good luck to us, but at least those two things are done, and it may happen other opportunity in future. That is how I try to advocate the industry, that money can be a byproduct. It is not the industry where you are talking today and tomorrow someone will write a check. And especially from the participant point of view, they don't pay, NDIS pay. So we need to have that service mindset. Number six is the SIL participants and the house management. That is something, is all the transitional part I call, which is so important. Often people lose. Investors or SDA providers say, "Oh, I spent so much time and now the participant doesn't want to come." So again, you can't blame the participant, you can't blame the family, you can't blame anything. It is this process, the steps, something has been neglected or missed. That's why it happened. So that is the expertise which we do in our business day in, day out. And that's why we are so good in the hospital discharge or even in the mental health with the forensic or the justice system participants, where we have to really have that thorough process. If something is missed, then it's a huge negligence, and that can be either risk to the participant or a loss to the investor. So that is something important which we do. The seventh item is appointing the SIL and or SDA provider on behalf of investors. Even we are not doing nationally, but quite often, number seven, we have been appointed from investors in Victoria investing in Queensland or vice versa. So that is fine, because over there we don't need to be physically present. We have shortlisted a SIL provider in Townsville. And that's a great way that I was saying no to the investor, and the investor says, no, you please assist, and that worked. So I think that's in summary what we do. You can check our website. You can reach out through our normal info email or a landline. But yeah, we absolutely would be happy to assist you. And more importantly, NDIS Property Australia, they always have our work, our presentations. You can feel free to take and make the most out of it.
Thank you very much, Mehul. That was such an informative presentation. Some really good
Thanks,
information there,
Debbie. Thanks, Debbie.
that I hope some people actually got something out of. So I think I'm just going to share this again, just so if anybody actually has any questions that they wish to ask of Mehul, we would love to answer them. If you got any questions at all regarding SIL providers, how they work, anything to do with that connection between SIL and SDA. I think I might start with, I would like to know, Mehul, in your particular experience as a SIL provider,
Mhm.
have you seen much turnover of SDA tenants? This is actually a question that I get quite often. People I guess maybe have the assumption that it's like a normal house tenancy and people will just up and leave after 2 years, which is obviously not the case. Generally, this is going to be their forever home, but of course, we do know that there is some turnover.
Yes, I would say that I often see, and also we often see people who wants to moving from existing SDA to another SDA as well. So uh, the turnover is, I think I have seen 50%, which is quite scary, and it will only get better because of the steps which we discussed, that it is easily avoidable, I call it, because
Mhm.
if you get um, the classic example that someone has been put as a first participant in the house. This is the
Mhm.
most common category.
Mhm.
As many of the investors would know that the SIL ratios are like, three people sharing with the one OOA, or two people, and 101 is very hard to get. Yes, in apartment, because you may have the overnight assistance shared for multiple people. But coming back to your question, the reason being, the gap between the first participant and the second participant, so even there is no service issue, there is no other issue, but the funding has been utilized at the 1% ratio, when the SIL provider or SDA provider have promised to both investor and the participant that we will find another participant, we will find another participant. So if you have not mapped out the entire journey upfront and you are taking one step at a time, that's where you get caught out, because the timing is important, and that's where the one participant who is there, they are going to leave because they said you are using my plan, I'm not, or I'm not getting enough services. Then you have a risk of health negligency, the risk of participant being alone. So all those things are starting with the reactive fashion, and investors are staying miles away from, I call this action, and no one is going to tell them that why you lose or you are getting another participant.
So really important, as you said, to make sure that you start off with the right team
Yes,
to
right.
get the right tenants in from the outset.
Yes, and try to get, at least if it's a three people house, and try to get two people minimum,
Mm,
by even delaying that first person by a month. And that's what I mean. That don't just prematurely take the first person because you have a pressure of
yeah,
getting that started. But
yeah,
if you educate the investor and if you really work hard, it would be in a long term, the two participants would be much more sustainable. And to give an idea for investors, that the general rule is, if you have a three people house and two participants are being serviced as in ethical way, the SIL provider comes as a break even. And then the third participant can only provide them some bottom line profit. So all those things are important, and if you are not going to have that, either you will cut the corners or there is a bad service.
yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks for that answer. All right, we have some questions coming in from Shiju. What is the key difference between SDA and SIL in terms of responsibilities and duties? Now, you've mentioned STA there, but I think you mean SDA. So, what is the key difference between SDA and SIL in terms of responsibilities and duties, which I think you have covered, but if you want to just summarize that again, Mehul.
Yeah, so I think that even to simplify, you can see, I always call the before, during, after. So the SDA provider, they are not responsible for any services, any direct participants' care, any direct communication other than their tenancy management with the participant. So they are the pure, like a, take it this way, they are like a real estate version of the disability segment for property. So they are like a property manager. So they often partner with the service provider, which is a SIL provider, and the licenses are very different. So that's why the SDA provider comes as only one license. It's called Module 5, and it's relatively easy to get because you need to have a building industry experience, real estate experience. You have a little bit of experience on the property side, and obviously, if you have occupational therapist or other clinical experience in allied health, you can still be SDA provider. But yeah, so SDA provider is a non-clinical, non-service version of that entire machine, while the SIL provider, they actually find the disability, the person with the disability, and they service into their house. So technically SDA provider is renting that particular property to a SIL provider with the contractual way, and the SIL provider is making the service contracts for those participants who they are bringing into a property. So really the participants are more influenced by the service besides the property. Property is the one infrastructure which they are happy with and say, yes, this is good, room is good, house is accessible, this that, but then ongoing service. Another way to put is, I call, again, the crude way to explain, but it's a mobile and a SIM card. So your SDA provider is your mobile and investor is actually the mobile, but the SDA provider is more about the property side and the SIM card is the service provider. So quite often you see that you use the best phone, but if your signals or network is not good, you are not happy. So
Good
that's
analogy. I
yeah.
like that, Mel.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Tim, hi, Tim. Do you operate in Brisbane or only Victoria? I assume that you are directing this question to Mehul. Mehul is only in, as I think you did say, you're in Melbourne at the moment, but you'll be expanding to regional Victoria.
Yes, regional Victoria and through NDS in Brisbane, NDS Property Australia, they have a great presence. So through them, we are more than happy to assist when we can assist remotely. As I mentioned, in Townsville, we have recently appointed SIL providers. But depending upon many services which we offer, we definitely don't offer running a SIL house in Brisbane. But the rest of the services which we can do remotely, we can do that.
Yeah. Rob, okay, your question. I've recently appointed a SIL provider in WA where the build completion is due mid-2025. Do you recommend or rate existing SIL providers if you are unable to provide the service? So do you have any SILs that you would recommend in WA, I believe is what Rob is asking.
Yeah, so right now we have a couple of SIL providers, but we can take and look at your property. So I will take 2, 3 steps back. So rather than just launching into a SIL provider, we will first see the type of your property, type of your investment, what are the factors which you have to consider, and then we can even suggest with the size of the SIL you need, like what type of. Some SIL provider are extremely good in apartments, some are good in the small house setups and things like that. But the short answer is yes, we can assist you in shortlisting, or we can even assist you to guide you to ask the right questions to SIL provider, or to join with you, whichever way, without sounding like we are not trusting other professionals.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Rob. That Mehul and his team are very much working with us as advisors to assist anyone in the space who needs assistance in whether it's SDA or SIL, understanding and knowledge, and to assist with providers. So that is all the questions we have. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to your presentation, Mehul. I think you pretty much covered everything about the SIL provider side of things.
Yeah, no, I think we covered everything. I wish everyone all the best with their journey or aspiration, or someone who are already embarked that journey. And as we are more than passionate and happy to help with anything which we can assist from our knowledge.
Absolutely. Okay, then. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks to everyone who jumped in. I know that those of you maybe based in Victoria are maybe having an easy day. You've got the Cup Day tomorrow. But thanks to everyone for jumping on. And remember, you will get a copy of this presentation along with the slides as well, so you can go over that again. Thank you so much, Mehul. And I know Mike was there in the background assisting with this presentation today. Really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with our registrants, our attendees today. and hopefully some of them will be reaching out to you. They'll have more questions
Yeah.
regarding SIL.
No, absolutely. And thanks for coordinating, organizing, Debbie, as usual. Everything is perfect, no technical problems, sir, and really appreciate. I think that bringing everyone on a one platform. And thanks,
Yeah.
everyone, and nice meeting you all virtually.
Okay, and we'll see you guys all on the next one. Have a great
Oh,
day.
thanks.